it be another sensational night for Luke and Vessa and the boys as they take on a pack of Panthers at the Air Canada Centre. Brian McCabe in town yet again. Welcome everybody to Gate 1 at the Air Canada Centre live. This is Molson Canadian Leaf Nation pregame show presented by Tim Hortons. I'm Jody Vance, joined by Joe Bowen, who will call the game tonight on Rogers Sportsnet, our hockey analyst Mark Morrow, and our senior reporter Paul Henrik down at the end there. He keeps us all together. He's the glue, really. Lots to cover off on tonight's show. We'll have a sit-down interview with Stephen Weiss. He also tells a little tale of a coach he had at one point named Joe Bowen. He'll tell that story and much more as we break it down, as we count down to puck drop. And here are your headlines, brought to you by Ford, powered by you. Paul?
You've talked about sensational. Well, Luke Schenn is headline number one, and while Schenn has been lukewarm, Florida is red hot. So too the Maple Leafs in terms of offense. And Joe, day after Lucas Sabis has been sent down by the Flyers back to junior in Lethbridge, the teenagers are getting few and far between in the National Hockey League. Luke Schenn is still very much here. Is he getting better? On the last two games indicative of the fact that he might be getting better?
Well, Ron McLean, I really couldn't tell you that, but one thing that I can tell you is the fact that watching this kid, he has gone through the various stages. First he wanted to get to training camp, then he wanted to make the team, then he had to adjust his game to the speed of the game as he became acclimatized. Then all of a sudden it was a situation where the veterans got going. He had to reach back and make sure that he reached that plateau. Now at the second half of the season, he's excelling. His ice time is up, and his play is up, his physicality is up. He's brought a little bit of an offense to his game since the All-Star break, which has been nice, and he's added this little touch right on the bugle of Mr. Kennedy. But the one thing that I like about him, and talking with Jeff Finger too, he said after the game the other night, wait till this kid gets rid of some of that Mark Morrow baby fat and puts 20 or 25 pounds of muscle on. His physical game is going to become just unbelievable. I have to go now.
At least you were talking about my baby fat.
You're still not that far away.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we know he wants that first National Hockey League goal, and I thought it was going to come in Minnesota exactly a week ago from tonight. It is going to come soon, but things have come first, and that is his physicality. He had a chance to talk with Andy this morning about being physical.
Luke, it seems that on this team, yourself and Jeff Finger are the gritty, hard-hitting defensemen. Is that the kind of style you need to keep up in these next few games and just kind of bring the team up to speed and get those wins that you have been getting lately?
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone's got different roles on the team, and, some guys are goal scorers and bring offense, and some guys bring, I guess defensive play and a little more grit. So I guess, yeah, for Jeff, he's always, been there physically for us, and for myself, I try to play physical as well when I get the opportunity. So, there's lots of other guys too, like you look at Mares and Mitchell and May and guys like that too. So, we got some physical guys, and sometimes guys play different roles, and that's all part of it.
Some challenges for young defensemen, and one of them being is knowing when to read the play, knowing when to pinch, and kind of contribute on the offense. And that's what we saw from you last game, where you went on in and Matt Stajan ended up scoring on that. That comfort level, are you starting to be able to read the play a bit better as well, and even knowing when to contribute offensively?
Yeah, I mean, it comes with time, being able to adjust to the game. I've been saying that all year, but it is the truth. And definitely you got to, learn how to read the play and when to step up and, like you said, make a pinch or, kind of come down low and keep the puck in, or when to step up and try to hit someone. So it's all about timing, and you got to be at the right spot at the right time.
Well, Schenn certainly showed his resilience bouncing back from a -4 game last Tuesday in Minnesota. Comes back and had a tremendous game in Denver. And, of course, Saturday night, Mark Morrow was a part of his ability to bounce back that way, his personality.
Absolutely, it's his personality, because that is a difficult thing to do, and I know that firsthand as a player, and I think it's a big part and a big testament to the maturity process that Joe talked about, is when you have an outing like that as a young player, and I went through it myself, that can really rattle you, and that can really shake your confidence, but to come back and play like he has in the last two games, we watched, that seemed like a highlight reel for the complete year, and that was only the last two games in that opening segment, that video on Luke Schenn, and that is a huge testament to him and his capabilities as a player. And like you said, his personality, where he just doesn't seem to get rattled. He knows his role, he knows his job, and he goes out there and performs it very well.
Now, he's a great kid. Florida, by the way, as we segue, is having a pretty good season, certainly by their standards. And yes, Florida is hot, certainly much hotter than it is here in Southern Ontario these days. They're coming off their second best January in franchise history, no fewer than 17 points, and that included a 6-1 win over the Leafs right here at the Air Canada Centre. Pete DeBoer reflects on that great win.
Yeah, we had a great start in here last time. I think, people in Toronto realize that the Ontario boys coming home, and even all the Canadian kids coming home, they get fired up to play here, and there's not a lot of motivation speeches needed. I think we caught the Leafs, on a bad night and a bad start last time, and we're not expecting the same thing this time. I think they've been playing very well lately, and I'm sure they're going to be prepared, and it'll be a different team we're facing tonight than last time, I think.
Is that the template, though? The template of starts that you're looking for on the road? Because, I mean, it's a speed game the Panthers play, but I mean, that was almost textbook.
It was. I mean, that was one of our best first periods of the year, and obviously, we're a pretty simple team. We've got to get pucks in deep and grind it out and cycle, and scoring the first goal in a game and getting some momentum is always a key for us. So the start's going to be critical. We've had 2 days off. Had a disappointing effort against the Islanders, so really there's no excuse not to be ready to play tonight.
Well, a pretty good month of January. In fact, Joe, 6-2-2 in their last 10 games. Where do you start with? Balanced goaltending, a pretty decent defense, and certainly balanced scoring, even without David Booth in the lineup tonight.
I think it's none of those. I think it's a change in philosophy, and that man that you just talked to is probably as big a part of it as anything. This team under Jacques Martin was a trapping, slow, defensive team, defensive-minded hockey club. And he had a lot of young guns that they acquired through the draft since the 2000 year when they actually made the playoffs. So you had a lot of pent-up offensive talent sitting there, really not being allowed to go. And I think Peter DeBoer has opened up the strains a little bit, got the leash off them a little bit, and he's allowed them to go. And they're a pretty exciting hockey team to watch right now because they skate, they can do things offensively, and a lot of people are having career years because of that, and they're out of that trapping defense-first mode.
Hey, hockey's fun for a change, and it's great to see in Sunrise.
And I do apologize to Mark Morrow because he's threatened to beat the snot out of me for that.
You got to apologize to him now for
all what?
Everything he said. That was the reason you said no.
I was right,
goaltending, no scoring. It's all coaching.
But I was right.
Clearly somebody had only coached.
The Maple Leafs are red hot as well. In fact, they've scored 12 goals in their last 2 games, a couple of victories, of course. And Mark Morrow, I have to wonder if it's just a matter of getting back to the basics in terms of getting this offense started.
That's absolutely what it is. And this team really thrives when the offense is going. Now, that's obviously something easy to say, but last 2 games, 12 goals, 4. The 4-game losing streak prior to that, they had a total of 7 games in those 4s, and they've given 16 up against. It just seems like they play like a more confident bunch when they score a couple of goals early in the game. They play looser. They're just more in tune with the game. When they don't score early or they're having trouble scoring, they get really uptight. Then they start trying to do too much, and that ends up backfiring on each and every time, and that's what happened in that 4-game losing streak. So when they're keeping it simple, are able to fire it at the net, crash, and get traffic and screens there, they're a lot more effective.
All right, I got a little something before we let you go, Joe. I know you got to get upstairs. You got to call a game as mentioned on Sportsnet. But we sat down a little earlier today with Stephen Weiss, somebody who you've known for a long time.
Many years, yeah.
A Markham boy. And so I asked Stephen, before we got into our serious interview, if he had any memories of Coach Bowen. He said, oh, yes, I do. Have a look.
Obviously, with his job, he had to miss some games with us, so he used to tape record his pregame speaches or whatever to 7, 8-year-olds. Yeah, and we used to play it on the tape recorder, and he'd be yelling and screaming at us, and it was neat. It was neat.
He would rant into a tape recorder.
Into a tape recorder.
I love that.
Honestly. I know. I tell a lot of people that. They love that stuff.
Can we show this to Joe then?
Show it to him.
Okay, we'll show it to Joe.
Sure he remembers.
Thanks. You really did that?
They were classic. I put them on a DVD and they're for sale now.
Well, actually, you know what, Stephen?
Newt Rockney and Lombardi. A lot of great speeches I stole from.
Stephen actually asked if you might have kept a tape.
No, I don't.
Because he would have loved one of those. Joe, thank you for adding a little humor to the early portion of Molson Canadian Leaf Nation pregame. We always appreciate it when you pop in. We will see you next time. We'll actually hear you when you call the game, of course. Fans are streaming in, getting ready for the Panthers and your Toronto Maple Leafs. Jason Blake and company ready to keep things lit up nice and hot in this building. Win 3 in a row.